Hi, kindergarten friends. This is Miss Leach, and I am so excited to be back to do the second part of our reading lesson with you today. Give me one quick second to share my screen with you. All right, friends, welcome to our kindergarten reading lesson on our second day of learning about story elements. Our learning target, again for today, is I can use story elements of characters, setting, and events to retell stories sequentially, which means in order, using beginning, middle, and end. Let's see if we can say that together. I can use story elements of characters, setting, events to retell stories sequentially using beginning, middle, and end. Some new words that we're going to learn in our story today are dreadful, which means extremely bad. Yesterday in our story, we got to see how Chrysanthemum felt, and they described the way she felt about her name being dreadful. So she felt really bad about having her name the way it was. And we're going to hear her father describe the way that they are treating her as envious, begrudging, discontented, and jaundiced, which means her friends were jealous and dissatisfied, and they want what someone else has. And then we're going to hear the word indescribable, and that means something that can't be put into words. So yesterday, we talked about story elements. We talked about how characters are animals or people in a story. We talked about setting, which means where and when the story takes place. But we mainly focused on the events of the story. So what is happening throughout our story? And the events we talked about happen in the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. And to retell the story, we use some key words: first, next, then, and last. So first in our story, we see that Chrysanthemum loves her name, but then she goes to school, and she doesn't exactly like her name so much because everyone starts laughing at her and saying that her name is too long and has too many letters and won't fit on her name tag, and that they would rather have a different name than that. Next, in the middle of the story, she comes home and she's so miserable. She's so sad when she comes home from school because they have just been so mean to her. And some might even say being like a bully, where they're just making fun of her name and just making it really hard for her to like being at school. So her parents try to make her feel better by giving her her favorite dinner and play some of her favorite games before she has to go to bed. Then at night, when she does go to bed, she has a dream that her name is Jane and everyone loves her name and loves her. So the next day she goes to school and the kids are still mean to her and still making fun of her when they hear her name being called out again. So let's continue with our story and see what else happens in our story of Chrysanthemum. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me." "Oh, pish," said her mother. "They're just jealous." "And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced," said her father. "Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours?" said her mother. After all, it's absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. Chrysanthemum, 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 the flowers seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. That means they couldn't even talk. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. So they couldn't even explain about who she was because they were just so mesmerized by how wonderful she was. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as the dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Jo was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy, Jo, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum, was the answer. Her name is so long, said Jo. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. So let's go back and look at our chart and see what else we can add to the middle of our story. So then we see the other kids still making fun of her, but to make her feel better, her mom makes her favorite dessert when she goes home. Then she dreams she's a flower, and it was the worst nightmare of her life. Next, she has music with Miss Twinkle, and she gets in the musical, but she's a daisy in the musical. So the kids start making fun of her again because now they say she really is a flower because her name is Chrysanthemum and she is in the musical as a daisy, which is another kind of flower. So let's see what happens at the end of the story. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Jo. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would, said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are? Said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed. She beamed. She boomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Jo, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Call me Marigold, said Jo. I'm Carnation, said Rita, pointing. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. Epilogue. Overall, the class musical was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria made the only mistake. She completely forgot her lines as the dainty fairy queen. Chrysanthemum thought that was wildly funny, and she giggled throughout the entire dance of the flowers. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and of course, she named her Chrysanthemum. The end. So let's look at what happened at the end. So first in the story, in the beginning, we saw that Chrysanthemum loved her name. Then we saw everyone laughing at her name because they said her name was too long. It didn't fit on her name tag, and she was named after a flower. Next, the other mice are still making fun of her, so her mom makes her favorite dinner and her favorite dessert when she goes home. She has a dream that she changes her name to Jane, and then the next night she dreams that she becomes a real flower and her friends start picking her and messing with her. But then she meets Miss Twinkle, the music teacher, and gets in the musical as a daisy. So when Miss Twinkle comes over, she sees that the other mice are making fun of Chrysanthemum's name because she gets picked as the daisy. So Miss Twinkle tells her that her name is just as long, that her name is not going to fit on a name tag, and that her name is named after a flower too. Her name is Delphinium, and that when she has her baby, she wants Chrysanthemum to be her baby's name also. So we can use the characters in the story and the place where the story happens and the events to describe and retell what's happening in the story by using what happens in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So let's look at our learning target one more time. I can use story elements of characters, setting, and events to retell stories sequentially or in order using beginning, middle, and end. Let's say that together. I can use story elements of characters, setting, and events to retell stories sequentially using beginning, middle, and end. So today, friends, I have a really fun writing activity to go with our story. Our writing activity is going to be some pages where we draw about the characters. So we're going to draw a picture of Chrysanthemum on one side and Victoria on the other. And we're going to use what we remember from the book to help us draw the pictures. Then we're going to draw pictures that show how Chrysanthemum feels about her name at the beginning of this story. And then you can turn and talk to your parents or whoever's with you about does she think her name is perfect? Then we can draw a picture that shows what happens in the middle when Chrysanthemum goes to school, and then why the girls start to make fun of Chrysanthemum's name. And then at the end, we can draw a picture that shows who helps Chrysanthemum feel happy about her name again. And then why does she feel happy about her name again? So those are all questions you can draw and write about in our writing response for the story Chrysanthemum. And don't forget, Chrysanthemum did think her name was absolutely perfect because she knew it was absolutely perfect. All right, friends. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did. And I hope that you keep reading and keep doing your best. And I hope I will see you soon. Bye.